Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive in Concord. Commissioner Young, congratulations. As a fellow brother in Christ, if you need help in spreading the word, all you have to do is ask. The issue that I have before the commissioners today, I have 4 copies. This is like 8 pages. And may I approach the commissioners and hand this to you, because it may, in order for you to follow what I'm going to say, you're going to need the documents in front of you.
Can you flip to our clerk, please? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I was before the commissioners last week and expressed an opinion that I really thought that Mr. Callender on the Lakeland board, living outside of the county, really didn't have skin in the game. Well, I've come here to ask you for some help. This is a follow-up to that discussion last week about Ryan Callender. We understand that Mr. Callender has tendered his resignation, and we thank him for doing what is in the best interest of Lake County taxpayers. Lakeland placed a renewal levy on the November 2021 ballot, and it was approved by the voters. That renewal levy brings in approximately $8 million in revenue to Lakeland. My memory shows me correct, Commissioner Hamercheck, you supported the levy, but I believe Commissioners Young and Commissioner Plechnik expressed no opinion. Lakeland gets about $19 million in property taxes from Lake County. $8 million was from the last levy that was passed. Well, we have a lot of sources in Lake County that keep us apprised of what is happening in the county, and a couple sources have given us some information, very disturbing information, about contract negotiations going on between Morris Beverage and the Lakeland Board of Trustees. And we're asking for the commissioners for help in sorting out fact from fiction. This is not something that I can get, I can issue a public records request and get some information, but I see with the appointment of our new trustee, and I congratulate him, I'm concerned. Our sources pulled back the curtain, and this contract with Mr. Morris Beverage, I couldn't believe it when I first heard it. It was so lucrative. I said, this can't be true, but I need to have your guidance on this. His current 5-year contract is about to expire. The exact date is unknown. He receives $379,000 plus employee benefits with a $100,000 bonus at the end of the contract period. Mr. Beveridge is looking for another 5-year contract with a $500,000 cash bonus at the end of the contract term and a significant increase in his annual salary. As I was told, the current offer from the Board of Trustees, in addition to the honorariums that Mr. Beveridge will be eligible to receive from speaking engagements, there's going to be a salary increase from $379,000 to $675,000 in the first year, with annual cost of living increases. There's going to be a bonus. The bonus is offered, again, allegedly, an increase in with the increase in salary from $379,000 to $675,000 in the first year, with annual cost increases there every year after that. The bonus will be a signing bonus of $100,000 in the first year. This is not the $100,000 that he gets from the expiration of the current contract. This is a new $100,000 with the signing of a new 5-year contract. There will be a lump sum bonus, allegedly, of $300,000 at the end of the 5th year. there's a buyout of the contract after the first year. If either side terminates the contract in the first year, the entire amount of the contract due remaining in the 5-year contract is paid upon termination. You know, that could amount over $3 million if that is true. On the second page, I created an Excel spreadsheet with the numbers to show the amount of dollars that we've got involved here. Remember, the levy passed in November that brought in $8 million to the school. So I'm looking at a contract here that's going to pay out about $4 million if he terminates after the first year. And all of this is included with his pension that he receives because he's a double dipper. On page 3, I tried to do some research on what are college presidents being paid in the United States. And on page 3, we can just see the 50% or median is $311,000 per year, with a high going up to $542, which is still, so the $679 that they're contemplating seems a little high for a community college. On page 4, again, another search showed that an associate degree college with the ranks, presidents earned on average $273,000. The high was $589,000 and a low of $124,000. Then on page 5, I wanted to see what private colleges were paying. So I found an article dated December 10, 2017. Case Western Reserve University president Barbara Snyder, her base salary was $700,312 with a $175,000 bonus. And on page 6, we have some more college presidents' salaries. And I would say that for a community college, a 2-year college, what we're paying at $379 seems to be on the high end, but going to $679, that's more in line with a 4-year college. Then on page 7, I said, well, what's happening in Lakeland? What's happening to their enrollment? And this is something that I published on Lobbyists for Citizens before. And, from 2010 to 2020, there's been a decrease of 42.4% in enrollment. Then I remember that there was some discussion about putting in dorms in a 2-year college, and I found that to be a little different, I guess. I didn't realize that that was a mission of. I always thought the community colleges were really for those in the community. So I'm wondering if there's decisions being made at Lakeland Community College that they want to switch from a 2-year community college to a 4-year college. If that would be the case, then probably it would make sense to increase the salaries to those high numbers. And then I wonder, whose decision is that? Do the taxpayers get to decide if Lakeland goes from a 2- to a 4-year college, or is that just automatically done? Is that done by the Board of Trustees, and we as taxpayers are just really on the hook to pay for the bill on decisions that they made? I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm just asking. And then what happens if we go from a 2-year to a 4-year college? Does that impact the 3 property tax levies that are already in the books? Does that just automatically, are they automatically in place? So I've got more questions than answers, and I don't know where to go to verify all of this, so that's why I'm coming before the commissioners to maybe ask for some guidance as far as, do I just go to the Lakeland Community Board and ask them if this is true or not? Because, I took a look at my tax bill, and I'm paying $428.51 a year to Lakeland. I don't use any of the facilities, but that's part of, being a citizen in Lake County. But I want to make sure that all of our entities that are receiving the taxpayer dollars through property taxes are good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So I'm here asking for some guidance as far as where do you suggest that I go to resolve this issue? Because I need to get it resolved. The citizens of Lake County need to know if this is even on the drawing board. I'll finish. If that makes sense, what I've just said.
Brian,
Your mic on.
these are very disturbing numbers. What is the source of the numbers you're presenting?
Commissioner Young, I never reveal my sources.
Okay. But you feel that you trust these sources? You feel you
I've never
at
been...
least to a point, you trust your sources?
I always try to corroborate things before I actually publish it on Lobbyists for Citizens. I think that's extremely important in good journalism. But when these sources, who have been reliable sources in the past, when they mention this to me, and then I'm just raising my hand here to the commissioners to make sure, if you're not aware of it, you should be aware of it, and perhaps you'll be inquisitive to find out, is this legitimate or not? I would love to have you come back, Commissioner Young, and say, Brian, you're full of hot air. That isn't even considered. And I'll say, okay, thank you very much. But if it is true, the citizens of Lake County will be informed of this.
Oh, you've been working at these issues for a long time now, getting information from various organizations on a lot of different topics. How are you approaching Lakeland at this point? Just public record requests?
Yeah, I have made many public records requests. The last thing was dealing with Steve Olick, who was the gentleman that sued and won $350,000, from Lakeland for he had PTSD and he was not treated properly. Of course, Lakeland, settled, but they didn't say that they were guilty of anything. But I tried to get that out into the public. The News Herald would not print the article. I did publish it on Lobbyists for Citizens. So I did have I had all the information, records request, from their attorney. Amy Sabbath used to be my contact at Lakeland Community College, but she doesn't want to communicate with me anymore, and so now I have to deal directly with their attorney.
They still have to respond to public record requests, right?
Yes, and to the attorney's credit, he does it on a very timely and complete and accurate basis. So I have no problem with Lakeland in their transparency when it's asked for.
So you feel you have an avenue now to corroborate your...
I'm looking for corroboration. I'm asking the commissioners, can you help, corroborate that? If not, I guess I will go to the board. I mean, I'm not opposed to doing that. I think their next meeting is early May or something like that.
So your party alleges that these issues have been brought up before the board.
Right.
And the board is discussing them.
Yeah, and I also was told that Mr. Callender was the fifth vote to make this happen, and I can't prove that, but that would be very interesting to Mr. Callender when we brought to the attention of the commissioners that he resigned. And maybe Mr. Callender is saying, thank goodness my name was brought up. Maybe he didn't want to be part of this. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up in the second public portion before Matthew accepted the appointment.
I didn't know how to,
No,
I didn't know how to approach that.
as you have seen here today, this board appoints some of the board members at Lakeland College. There is separate political subdivision. Yes, I did support their levy. Yes, as I believe I indicated when Matthew came up, I do believe strongly that Lakeland is an asset to Lake County, just like Auburn Career Center and Lake Erie College. But I do have a near and dear spot with Lakeland. I believe the quality of education that comes out of there is amazing. We've got many success stories to point to. The numbers, I can't say I have anything firsthand. I've heard the $100,000 end of the 5-year contract. That's sort of been out there circulating for a while. These other numbers, I would be stunned if the entire board had been negotiating something like this. This seems generous. I'm kind of, you almost gave us a punch list here. Hang on a second. As far as going to a 4-year college, I think Lakeland, I'm looking to legal, was created, forgive me if you don't, I'm hitting it cold. Lakeland was created by a vote of the people. We probably have to look at the language and what their charter is and how they were created. I think it was the Ohio Board of Regents at the time. I don't know what that body is called now, if it's still.
It's also statutory as well. I just want to weigh in on one thing. I think it's clear, but I want to make sure everyone understands that this Board of Commissioners has no control over the day-to-day activities.
Yeah, yes, I understand.
negotiations,
I understand, Mr. Hackman. I do understand that.
Just if I could just continue down, do the taxpayers get to decide at the ballot box? Well, every time something comes up, I guess that's a yes, but I would defer that to parties more familiar with that action than I. And then the 3 current property tax levies carry over to a 4-year college. Again, I'm imagining you'd have to see how they were created, and you'd have to examine the ballot language. And that sounds incredibly complicated. Mr. Hackman, thoughts?
I haven't researched the issue. I don't know if it is or isn't.
I suppose we could certainly ask for would we have the language? I'm going to look to our clerk. Would we have the original language? Hey, we just talked to Becky Lynch about our records. With that original approval to go on the ballot, that would have come from the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, if there's a resolution creating Lakeland, we can find it in our
So we can do that.
Or the board, creating the board.
Is that, I'm looking at the legal, Mr. Hackman, that's reasonable? That would be an existing record?
The public record.
Okay, so I can issue a public records request to you.
I think you just did. So
Okay.
that's pretty clear and unambiguous. Regarding these other issues, yeah, if I see my colleague here, he's champing at the bit, so I'm gonna.
I mean, Mr. President, first and foremost, I condition every comment on the understanding that we don't have any final numbers or official numbers from Lakeland Community College before us, and so we're reacting to what a member of the public has shared from sources that he is not revealing. And so it may be that this is a mammoth misunderstanding and that no numbers anywhere near close to these were discussed, involved, accurate. And so we certainly acknowledge, I think everyone acknowledges that we don't know for a fact that these numbers are the ones being paid to the president's position or negotiated for the president's position. I would just echo Commissioner Ron Young and his philosophy that I believe in shrinking government and its cost. I believe government is too big and that it's the mission of true public servants to reduce it. There are seniors being taxed out of their homes. Property taxes are an especially great burden. And those property taxes do in fact fund most of our education in Lake County, both grade school, high school, as well as higher education like Lakeland. I also share President Hamercheck's love for higher education. I'm a professor, and I care deeply about the work that Lakeland does, which is why I'm so thoughtful in choosing my trustees, and why I view it as one of the most important functions of the commissioners in appointing the board of Lakeland, 6 of the 9 members, the other 3 being appointed by the governor of Ohio. But as someone who cares about reducing government and its cost on taxpayers that are already very overburdened. I mean, I've heard candidates for county commissioners say that salaries of 90-some thousand for countywide elected officials are obnoxious. I would say that to pay the president nearly $1 million of a local school, many times more than the county prosecutor, the sheriff, or a judge, roles that are mission critical and save lives every day. I mean, if this number was accurate, if someone even seriously proposed $700,000 with bonuses and honorariums on top of it, it's horrifying to me to even hear this as a thought. Forget a serious proposal that anyone could even conceive of numbers in this ballpark. I recoil in horror. And I would hope, and I have confidence, that the trustees of Lakeland Community College would never seriously entertain a proposal like this. I mean, to pay a president more than a county prosecutor, more than a sheriff, even more than a judge, is a pretty bold thing to do. But to pay them more than the common pleas judges combined would be just, it's the stuff of...
You bring up an interesting point, Commissioner Plechnik, that there are certain candidates that are running for commissioner saying that you guys have a part-time job. Is that true?
That individual is woefully misguided.
I just wondered, when I saw it, I said, well, yeah.
Forgive my laughter, but I find his statements contemptuous.
Because I know I've seen all of you, after 5 o'clock, and doing a commissioner thing. So I didn't think that you were working, one day a week. So.
I come in on the weekends.
Yeah,
because you cannot do the job 5 days a week.
Okay.
But it's not about the money for the sheriff, the judges, the prosecutors. There is many, many times more money to be made in the private sector. If I were still a lawyer in New York, I'd conservatively be making between $500,000 and $1 million a year. If I'd stayed at a firm of similar size and continued, I have classmates who are still there and are making that money. But I believe that public service is worth the sacrifice, and you expect to be paid a lot less, which is why when I see someone heading up a public institution, I expect them to make a sacrifice, to be paid less to do that important work. And that doesn't mean that the work is not appreciated, just because you're not paid as much as a CEO of a private company. But I frankly, I don't mean this in disrespect to you, Mr. Massey, but I cannot believe that these numbers were ever a serious proposal. Until I see a public records request on Lakeland letterhead, I will assume that this is somebody's wild fantasy, because there is no universe where a responsible person, knowing that this money comes directly from the taxpayers of Lake County, would suggest paying nearly $1 million to the president of a local community college. I can't believe it to be true. And even the numbers that are stated as current salaries, nearly $400,000 a year, I am in disbelief, and I am looking forward to you being proven wrong.
Yeah, well, the 379, Commissioner Plechnik, that I mentioned in here, that was from a records request that I received from the college. So that's a solid number that I did receive, that he does get $379,000 a year. No, there's no question about that. That's a records request. And I've already published that on Lobbyists for Citizens. So,
Mr. Massey, are you aware, I know that sometimes when excessive pay is given to presidents or administrators at colleges, they do it with the understanding that they donate the entire salary back. Have you done a public records request to see how much the donations were?
No, I have not.
Well, it may be that this is not as big an issue as we think. It could be that Mr. Beveridge is actually donating the salary back, because I can't imagine he would accept that much money.
We will address that, Commissioner Plechnik. Oh, thank you very much. I've taken up way too much of your time, but...
That's okay. I've heard this theme about taking a wage and donating it back. Are we going to start pulling tax returns now on people? Wow. Okay, forgive me. I'm digressing.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President, I just have to close that, as Mr. Hackman said, whatever the case may be, the Board of Commissioners do not have direct oversight over the expenditures of Lakeland Community College. The only vote that we have is in choosing good trustees. And I've had the opportunity so far to vote 3 times, and I'm proud of each of those votes, to appoint Janet Micah, former councilwoman, Fiscal Hawk, Ryan Callender, who has served with great distinction as president, and now my former student, Matt Hebebrand. And I say with confidence that the individuals I've appointed are going to be watching much more carefully and will ensure that the taxpayer monies are spent as we would spend our own. So I don't have the authority myself to correct any issues there may be, but I know that Matt will take care of it.
Yeah, again, as the average citizens out there, once we find out something, where do we go? So we're coming to the commissioners as average citizens, saying that if we have this issue, we would really, like some guidance, like some help, because we're just the taxpayers out here. We're funding the whole thing, but at times we feel like we have absolutely no recourse. No one is looking out for us. I'll end with that. Thank you.
So don't hold on. You've got a point number 5 on page 2. Dr. Beveridge. I'm going to add Dr. Beveridge. You just have Morris Beveridge. So
Oh, I beg your
we're talking
pardon.
about Dr. Beveridge. We wouldn't want to make any confusions of other beverages out there.
I beg your pardon. Yeah, this is Morris Beveridge the second, not Morris Beveridge the third.
Will always be at the top of the benefit listing. So this is one of those things of if somebody gets it, this is what you're being told.
Yes.
Okay. I'm okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.